Hello, cloud gurus. In this lesson, you'll learn how to create deployments from manifest files. What are manifests? Well, you're about to find out. A manifest file is a separate metadata file for an accompanying file or group of accompanying files. So, what does that mean? Well, it's a separate file that has some metadata about some other files. It's that simple. And in Kubernetes, manifests are created in either YAML or JSON format. These are simply just formats for creating the manifest file. And you might be saying, hey, David, I don't know YAML or JSON. I've never even heard of those people before. Well, no worries. The cool thing is that Kubernetes can create YAML files for you, or you can simply just download YAML files from the internet. And it's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a standard format for a simple text file. If you provide a YAML file to the Kubernetes API with kubectl, it'll be converted into JSON and then sent to the Kubernetes API for processing and implementation. So think of this manifest file as the instruction book that goes with a Lego set. It tells you exactly how to put the blocks together to make the final product. And that's really what you're providing to Kubernetes, this manifest file that's going to be the instruction book for what could be either a very simple application or a very complex application with perhaps hundreds or thousands of pods and services and storage and policies. And the cool thing about manifest files is that they're human readable and they serve as great documentation. So I can create a manifest file on my local laptop. I can then send that up to the Kubernetes cluster, create a new deployment from that manifest file, and it's going to look exactly as it did on my local laptop. When it comes to Kubernetes, you really have two different options for running your applications. However, because of Kubernetes design, it's really going to push you into the declarative model. But first, let's talk about the imperative model. So in the imperative model, you tell the API what you want it to do using the kubectl command. For example, kubectl, run this pod. It's going to create a new pod called Nginx, and it's going to use the image Nginx. Kubernetes doesn't have to think about that. You said specifically, run this pod, and it will. And I think of this like Captain Picard on Star Trek. There are times when he says, fire photon torpedoes, and they fire the torpedoes. To me, that's the imperative model. So with Kubernetes, we're saying, Kubernetes master, run my pod. And that's what Kubernetes will do. By comparison, we also have the declarative model or declarative method here. And this can also be called desired state configuration or DSC. And I know that's a term, if you're from the Windows world, that term may be familiar to you because it's typically used with PowerShell scripting. But it applies very well to Kubernetes and the declarative model because what we do is we provide a manifest file, which is just a simple text file, and it contains the instructions or the blueprint that tells the Kubernetes master via the kube API exactly what we want the master to do for us. And oh yeah, we want the master to ensure that that blueprint is exactly how we specified it at all times. And we do this with kubectl apply to apply with -f a manifest file. And I'll show you how to do this in just a minute. And the basic idea here is to simply say, hey, Kubernetes master, I want to make sure that this group of 5 web servers with 2 database servers are running at all times with some number of exposed ports with these specific resource allocations. And if they aren't healthy, and if that exact number is not running at all times, then oh yeah, go ahead and restart them for me. And I picture this again like Star Trek, where Captain Picard in the declarative model says, hey, first officer, hey, number 1, send an away party down to the planet and go rescue our hostages. And sure enough, the first officer will always come back and do exactly that. But he also might have to think on his feet at some point to make sure that what he was ordered to do is indeed accomplished. And that's what the Kubernetes master can do for us. And the great thing about the declarative model is that this is awesome for reproducible configurations. It's great for documentation. I can create this manifest file of everything I want for my complex application, and I can apply that manifest file to Kubernetes on my laptop or up in the public cloud or in my data center, and no matter what, it will be implemented in the exact same way every time. So speaking of desired state, let's say that I have a single deployment here with pods inside. Maybe it's running my company's e-commerce application. Kubernetes is constantly monitoring the actual state of the application, making sure that it matches the desired state and that everything is okay. Maybe there's another deployment over here and Kubernetes is monitoring the actual state of that deployment, but it doesn't match the desired state that was in our manifest file. Kubernetes will take action to ensure that the actual state matches the desired state. So it might start additional pods. It might stop pods if there's too many pods. And this is that declarative model that we've been talking about. And now let's go into the lab. And if you'd like to follow along with this, you're welcome to do so. But I should caution you that what we're doing here is advanced and probably not in line with a fundamentals course. But the purpose of showing you this is not for you to do it exactly as I show you, but to show you the power of the declarative model of Kubernetes and how you can use manifests to very quickly bring up complex applications. This might be a topic and a lesson that you want to circle back to after you've watched the entire course and try it for yourself at that point. Over in the Kubernetes documentation, they have a nice little example of deploying the PHP guestbook application with the Redis database. And to do this, they have a single Redis master to store the guestbook entries, multiple replicated Redis instances to serve the reads, and then multiple web front-end instances. And you might think, oh, gee, this is much more than I anticipated, deploying an application with multiple database servers and multiple web servers. But take a look at this. This is an example of a manifest file. It's in a simple YAML format. They provide multiple YAML files to do this. However, it is possible to combine everything that they do here into a single file. And instead of going through this with you, I've actually taken all the YAML files here that they provide and put them into an easy string of commands. So here's a list of the kubectl apply -f commands that they used with the specific URLs in the documentation to deploy each one of the different pieces: the Redis master, the master service, the Redis slave, the slave service, the guestbook front end, the guestbook front end service, and then finally to open up Minikube and access the URL. What we're going to do is just copy all of these commands and bring up this very complex application. So here at the command line, I'm just going to paste this in, and let's just give it a second to complete. And now let's take a look at this, kubectl get deployments. And you can see we now have a front-end deployment, a Redis master, and a Redis slave. And notice how we have 0 of 3 front ends ready. We have 0 of 1 Redis masters and 0 of 2 Redis slaves. And what's happening here is that these are slowly being brought up. If I do a -w to watch, let's give it just a second, and it should update. Here we go. 1 front end is ready, then 2, then 3. Now we should have all of our services up and running. We'll do a kubectl get deployments, and you can see there we have 3 front-end web servers, 1 master server, and 2 Redis slaves. If we do a kubectl get pods, you can see there are the individual pods that are running each one of these different services. So by just pasting in a command string with a YAML manifest file, we were able to deploy 3 web servers and 3 database servers. So now let's test it out. Let's do a Minikube service front end and take a look at that. There is the guestbook application up and running. I can type in Hello Cloud Gurus here, click submit, and we have our first entry in the guestbook. There we go. And that's how easy it is to deploy a very complex application using a YAML manifest file. So now let's go ahead and clean up the deployment that we just did. We're going to do a kubectl delete on each of the deployments, the 2 deployments and the 2 services. And with that, you can see that the deployments are gone, and so are the services. And now let's do one more example. And again, it's okay if you're not at the point of recreating these yourself in your own lab. The point here is just to show you the value of manifest files and the declarative model. So here again, in the Kubernetes documentation, they have an example of deploying WordPress and MySQL with persistent volumes. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this, but the basic premise is that you download a couple of YAML files and then you use what they call a customization YAML file, which is essentially a single YAML file that points to other resources and might contain things like secrets or passwords. So what we've done here, and I'll share my notes with you, is to download the two YAML files using a curl command. And with those two YAML files downloaded, I've actually already created the customization YAML file with these commands, and then all we need to do is to run kubectl apply -k to specify a directory where the customization file will be stored. So we'll do kubectl apply -k, and last time, if you remember, we did -f for a YAML file. In this case, we're doing -k for a customization file. And yes, it's customization with a K. I know it drives me crazy too. And then you have to specify a directory where that customization YAML file will be stored. Press enter on that, and look at that. We created a secret. We created two services. We created a deployment and two persistent volume claims. So if we clear the screen, let's do a kubectl get deployments, and you can see we have a WordPress and a WordPress MySQL deployment. The WordPress deployment isn't quite ready yet, but soon it will be. We can do kubectl get pods, and you can see we have a WordPress and MySQL pod. The WordPress pod is currently in a container creating state. We also created some services. You can see the WordPress and MySQL services are there as well. And then finally, we created some persistent volumes. And this is so that the data for the MySQL database and WordPress web server is always available, even if these containers restart. At this point, both our WordPress web server and MySQL server say that they are ready. And with that, let's test out WordPress. Upon running Minikube service WordPress, this is what we get. It might be familiar to you if you've ever installed WordPress. From here, we can go through the site title. We'll call it ACG Rocks. I'll give it a username of David. We've got a password there, which I'll copy and click Install WordPress. It tells us that WordPress has been installed. We can log in. And we are now indeed running WordPress, all based on two YAML files and a customization file that we created and then deployed with a single command, which was kubectl apply. And that's how easy it is to create complex applications using manifest files and then just a single command, kubectl apply. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you in the next video.